Right, welcome everyone. Right, we will start the meeting. Today's finance meeting of the 19th of June, and we will move straight through apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Cooper and Collins for absence, and Sir John Walker and Wayne Walker for leave of absence. And we also have apologies from Lotu Fuli, who's unable to come today because she's sick. So I'll move those apologies.
Sorry, Chair, can I also put the apologies for lateness for David Taipuri?
Yep, okay.
Mr. Chairman, depending on how long the meeting lasts, I have a funeral to attend for Linda's grandfather, so if one person.
All right, we are seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Good. Any declarations of interest? No, so confirmation of the minutes from the 6th of June. Councillor Simpson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Cashmore. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. There are no petitions, and we move to public input, and we welcome Bill Buckley and Janice Ehrlich and Greg Mosen. Welcome to the chair. Councillor Simpson and myself invited Speedway to come and talk to us because there obviously was a press conference which some people attended, but we just thought it was important that they come and explain a little bit more in depth their initiative to come to council about Speedway moving to the Collindale Park and obviously ask a question. So I think it's Bill, you're going to lead off. Welcome, Bill.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting us here, and it's good to get some interaction with council and look at something going forward. I raced Speedway in my early days and whatnot, but I took over the running of the Speedway at Western Springs in early 2000, and we ran into an environment court decision that went against us really, and it's made it very difficult to run Speedway ever since. And and in those early days we were offered Collindale Park, but in those days Collindale Park was it was quite difficult to get out there. It was and all that, and all that's changed since then. And as well as that, Speedway itself has changed. And what was really good in the early days of Western Springs is now becoming obsolete, and that would need. We've estimated around $30 or $40 million to upgrade Western Springs if we could, and then. We would still have the Environment Court problems of trying to get more meetings there. We need more meetings. Our followers and our competitors have grown substantially since we first took over Speedway. And so all that led to looking around, even though RFA were keen on shifting us around. I was very keen on Mount Smart, and I felt I got stabbed in the back there a little bit, and we could have well been setting up to go there. But then in the later years, they asked us to go to Waikaraka Park and have a look at that, and we took that on board and went down and did our due diligence down there. But running both sports are quite big in Auckland, and to run in conjunction with Waikaraka Park and the stock cars, even though the tracks are oval and things like that, it's a completely different sport, and the stock cars are not a sport that I like, and most of the Speedway guys have a completely different attitude to that, and from stock cars to Speedway, and so they put a different fence in, and they have a really big, heavy poles that crash, and we had them at the Springs, and I took them out and after a guy's bad injury there that he could never really work properly ever since, and I took it out and put a spring-loaded fence there, so the competitors got caught in the fence, didn't get stopped by the fence, and that's the difference between stock cars and Speedway. So you'd have to have two different fences, and you'd have to pull them down and put them up, and then they would have as many meetings as us, and they're both summer sports, so it would be very difficult to run it. So we pulled out of that negotiation and started looking with the Collindale Park as being a venue that has now got the motorway going right past it, and we believe that they're going to put a roundabout at our entrance, and so and the Speedway itself, the Western Springs track is a little bit too small for the higher powered cars that have been created in the last 10-15 years, and and even the little Kiwi Kids cars are getting faster, and they're on a bit too big a track, and they run a lot at Rosebank Road, which I'm a founding member of there too, and my thoughts at Collindale Park was that I could get a slightly bigger track than Western Springs and an infield smaller track to suit them and maybe the motorbikes and the sidecars, and so it's all led to the development of the sport and things like that. Why our decision was to front council and see if we could do our own deal at Collindale Park, and I think it's a really good move. In the early days, there was a lot of, we want to stay at Western Springs, but and since I've had Greg, he's worked really hard with them and with the competitors and whatnot, and they're 100% behind us to move to Waikaraka Park, to Collindale Park. So that's been our focus. So we're very happy with the idea of now, after making the decision that that's where we should go. We think we'll make it into a world class and a step above Western Springs, even though Western Springs has been one of the best tracks in the world. It's been rated as the top track for some 12 years in a row, but we want to go the next step. Yeah.
Greg, do you want to say anything? No? Okay. Right, councillors, questions of John.
Yeah,
Councillor
thanks,
Watson,
Bill.
sorry.
Yeah, just kind of following on from your last comment there about Western Springs and it being rated best track 12 years in a row. I mean, it only seemed a matter of weeks, probably was a month or so ago, where we were in getting this kind of glossy presentation from Greg about Western Springs, iconic part of Auckland's summer entertainment, affordable family-friendly entertainment, Speedway, the flagship Speedway venue, strong and loyal fan base, natural amphitheatre, etc., etc. There's programs on TV, 7 Sharp, the old couple there who'd spent their whole life there, very, very moving, and certainly that was reflected in where we had a record number of submissions from your fans wanting to stay at Western Springs. So what I'm finding a little hard to understand is the kind of where we went from, this wonderful venue where the 12 meets, wasn't ideal but was, acceptable, this huge following, to suddenly, boomfa, see you later boys, we're off to Collindale. I just can't understand the suddenness of that transition.
Well, we're not suddenly going to Collindale Park. We've got another 2 years at Western Springs. We've got to keep promoting the sport. We've got to keep pushing ahead with making Speedway bigger and better, and we intend to do that even at Western Springs for the next 2 years. There is, as I say, a lot of good things about Western Springs. I love the place myself. It's slightly warmer than any other facility that you've got in town. It's in that natural amphitheatre. It looks good. The crowd size that we're getting really fits it well. It was only 2 years ago when they changed the rules in racing in the midgets, for instance, with the bigger engines that America went to. So we've followed suit, and that is putting pressure on us for safety and other reasons like that at the Springs. We don't want any of our guys hurt, and it's getting difficult to get a sprint car race off the line in the first couple of laps without crashing. It's getting difficult to run a Kiwi Kids race because they're getting faster, and we had 4 or 5 flip, and they could easily get hurt. And we think it's you know, and to do all the changes we'd need down there, we've got to face the fact that it's $30 or $40 million to do, and that you know, realising that, and it starts to hit you, and it's you know, and the competitors have changed their attitude in the last 2 or 3 years as well, with agreeing that the Springs is getting too tight and too restrictive. The restriction down there has been tremendous. We haven't had any help from council or the RFA to accommodate us. We're getting more pressure, and it's just something we have to face up to. That if you want the city, you know, the health and safety for taking the fence down, we've had to put a bigger fence up than what was there pre 2000, and that takes longer to get down. The punters that go to these Yahoo bands and whatnot, they want clear vision, and so the fence has got to come down. It's got to go back up, and the OSH regulations won't let us work on that while they're working on the stadium, on the grandstand. So that now takes about 3 weeks to stop Speedway and start and do a concert and get back to Speedway. So and that cuts in. If you have 2 or 3 big concerts at Western Springs, it just makes it so awkward for us to take every stitch of our gear out and put it back in again.
Yeah, so it's just to sum it up then, Bill, so it's been all these factors, it's been nothing to do with the pressure exerted on you by RFA then, that's had no part in your decision?
No, right from the start of the RFA being formed, there was talk of us moving around, and I got quite excited about Mount Smart going there. I thought that was a good deal, but that was squashed by the RFA, and but at that time I never really canvassed my competitors, and ever since then we've been working on the competitors, what they really want, and that's where Greg's really done a good job in getting to the bottom of what they actually want, and they have been slower than me to turn around, but I think we wanted out of the situation where we only got 12 meetings and all the restrictions that we've got at Western Springs.
Councillor Newman.
I've got a series of questions, Bill. Firstly, the document that you've signed with RFA, is that a memorandum of understanding over here?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't work out where I was coming from.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Is the document that you signed with RFA, is that a memorandum of understanding? What is that document?
It's as Greg would probably answer it better, but it's an understanding that we're prepared to go to Collindale Park, providing we can do what we want to do there, and we get some help from the from
So,
Auckland to.
procedurally, Chair, I'd like a copy of that. I think that should be circulated to everyone. I'm surprised that it hasn't been. But I have a number of questions regarding this, if I may, and with your indulgence, Chair. So can I just ask, with respect to that, what are your financial and non-financial expectations of the council, either the parent body or Regional Facilities Auckland, as a condition of your agreement to move to Collindale? What do you need? What financial commitment do you need? What is it that you expect?
Well, I think it's all written in the what's the name, and they have agreed that they would come to the party with those figures that we wrote.
I haven't. Some people might have received it. I haven't. So
yeah, I don't know why. Didn't you ask for it? Or, I mean,
we're trying to address information issues, but can I? Are you able to elucidate on that? Because I just haven't got a copy of this.
would Greg?
Excuse
like
me,
to do it?
I would have thought that's a council document that is,
Yep.
that you should be asking
Readily
the
available.
council for that
Readily
rather than
available.
us.
Can that be circulated now?
Oh, it's circulated now. I don't
Yeah.
about now, but we could try.
Thank you. I'm happy to, of others to carry on if that information can be provided to me.
Yeah, we will. You got other questions as well?
No, I think I better read the document if it can be circulated.
Any other questions before our guests go? Councillor Lee.
Memorandum of understanding
Yes,
between the
good to
council.
see you again,
Yeah.
and obviously the situation has changed.
Do you have that?
In terms of Collindale Park, that's in the approach, that's on the approach path to Auckland International Airport, isn't it?
Yeah. It's about half a k away from the main approach.
Are you aware of the issues that came out of an investigation by Manukau City Council? There would be problems with lighting at night for a large event such as Speedway
Yeah.
meet.
Well, you know, that was years ago. That was back when we were first approached to go there. Since then, and if you'll remember, there was a aeroplane that tried to land on George Bolt Memorial, but that. And I'm a pilot myself, so I've got my own plane with the same sophisticated gear as Air New Zealand's got, and that is almost an impossibility now with the modern landing equipment they've got and the electronics of a plane. And no way would a plane try and land on George Bolt Drive, which has got lights right down it, and the GPSs are accurate enough to be able to distinguish between a speedway track and the main lights. They can land Cat 3 on complete fog out and all that, and there's, you know, that issue has completely gone away with the modern aviation.
Well, things obviously can change very, very quickly as we see. But however, have you discussed this with the technical people at Auckland International Airport?
We've only had one quick meeting with them, and I didn't actually attend to it, but I think Greg did.
Yeah, we didn't want to approach anybody because we were quite busy working through the complexities around getting to the MOU. So we have taken advice though. So if you look at Ruapuna Speedway, their boundary is with the airport there.
Wouldn't it make sense to check out the requirements of the airport approach path before you got into an MOU?
Well, there's two parts to it.
Wrong way round, isn't it?
Not necessarily, because there are two key parts to it. One is the access road, which is going to be sorted. We know that that's in hand. and the other one is the dust or the lights. And we have an example at Ruapuna that we have had a very serious conversation with, and some aircraft engineers, and we are, as far as they're concerned, we're going to be fine.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I think it would be responsible for this council itself to discuss the matter with Auckland International Airport.
Council
if
is
it's a matter of
Council
of
is present.
safety.
Council
Thank
is
you.
presently chasing that up with the airport as one of the many considerations. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and apologies for lateness. I had another meeting about water quality. But sorry I missed your presentation. I got most of it. My question is pretty simple, really. If it doesn't go through with Collindale, then what are your options?
I don't know. I think Auckland will sadly miss Speedway. It's a huge thing, and something has to be done to keep Speedway here. Otherwise, the city is a dead city, in my opinion. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but we can only work it out. We'd have to stay at Western Springs. We'd have to continue racing until we found a thing. So. The RFA were quite strong about us leaving this year, but they've given us another one for another year. But if they have to give us another one after that, I don't know. It's more up to them. I don't know. But we've got to solve this and push ahead. Speedway is a big sport in Auckland. It brings huge wealth to the city. There's millions of dollars worth of cars being built and serviced in Auckland, and it's a big contributing factor to the employment of New Zealand.
Councillor Simpson and then Councillor Philippine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I have received a number of emails from people who go to Speedway, sort of asking me not to let you move. My question, though, is around your fans. You know, they've been going to Western Springs for many, many, many years. How do you think they will cope with moving that fan base to Collindale?
Yeah, well, I say to them that it is going to be a big loss to that town, but the Environment Court brought it all on, and they have hammered us for years on this issue, and it should have been the RFA, the Environment Court should have been more responsible. But if you want to listen to one guy complaining about noise that was set up as a stooge anyway, that it is going to be a big loss to the that area, immediate area of Western Springs and Ponsonby. A lot of our punters I know they knock off work, they go for a drink at the in the Ponsonby area, and they go down to watch Speedway until the nightlife kicks in after 10:30, and they go out boozing after that. But I cannot, unless you want to give us $40 million, another 10 nights at Western Springs. Yeah, I'll talk about that. And not go to Collindale Park, but I just considered that's not, as long as that Environment Court hangs around, it's a stumbling block for the city and everything else, and we've got to face it that modern day traffic can get out to Collindale Park a lot easier. In the old days of the Western Springs, I caught a tram to the Speedway when I first went there, and the trams used to wait outside for us to finish Speedway. But none of that happens now. Everybody turns up in a car and goes. You've got to face it. It's the modern world.
We're addressing trams to Collindale, but you're confident then that your financial model of fans going to Collindale Park will keep your business sustainable?
Yeah.
Councillor Philippine.
Thank you, Chair. And tēnā koutou katoa to the three of you. Look, just 4 quick questions. Did you know that in 2006, Manukau City Council initiated the Collindale Park, and part of that, the reason was to get Speedway to go to Collindale Park? Just way back then?
Yes, I did.
And another quick question. Has there been any pressure from RFA for you to move to Collindale Park?
There's been pressure for me to move from Western Springs to anywhere.
And will there be enough time? Will there be enough time to sort out any issues in the next 2 years that you will be currently at Western Springs to sort out environmental issues and the airport issues? Do you think that the 2 years will be sufficient time to sort those out?
I sincerely hope so. We've spoken to on that issue quite a bit, and it's tight, but what can we do about it? We were told to start with that we were out of Western Springs at the end of this financial season. We've negotiated an extra year, and providing everybody pulls together, I think we can do it. But there is a certain, it is a tremendous task to try and bring it up to. We realise that our first meeting at Collindale Park has to be as good as our one in 2 or 3 years' time. So we want to try and get that track completely prepared, all the facilities completely prepared before we open the first meeting. So I hope we can do it, and I don't know how, if we can't do it by then, whether the RFA would let us stay at Western Springs. That would be the only alternative I see, but I don't know. I can't. All I can say is we have put a lot of spade work in to try and work out whether we can do it, and we think we can.
Okay, and just the last question out of the four chairs. How many potential events will be held at Collindale Park once you move there?
Well, we'd take it straight up to 16, I think, in the first year. But eventually maybe 24.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
That's double the amount.
Councillors, that document's been just been emailed to you. So, Councillor Hills. Sorry, it's on its way.
Yeah.
Yep. Councillor Hill.
Quite here yet.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I wasn't here for all the history of all of this, but so I just want to double check. So, even Speedway at Springs, the track has issues and the fence has issues, and if we're going to still have concerts there, if you stayed there, that would be an issue.
Yes.
And Waikaraka doesn't work because of it's a different track and different fences.
Yes. Yeah, it's different, different track and different containments to run the sport, and the two sports. Waikaraka's a club-run outfit and we're a professional-run outfit, and there's quite a bit of clashing there that was never really sorted out at the time.
So basically, Collindale is the best option for the future for you, your drivers and the competitors that you've worked with so far?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I'm just looking at a letter dated the 2nd of February this year from Auckland Stadiums, pretty much committing to investment in Waikaraka Park by RFA. And I'm wanting to know, when did you decide that Waikaraka was not suitable for your purposes? And also, what is the understanding between yourselves and the Auckland Stock and Saloon Car Club? You guys were going to merge at one stage, weren't you?
Council or RFA asked us to do the due diligence of going to Waikaraka Park. I turned it down in that advance back in 2002 or something, and then it was resurfaced just about a year ago, I suppose, and we went to those meetings, and we weren't getting what we wanted, and it just was not working. There was no. They wanted to go down a different track than us, and we wanted. That it was originally shown to us with moving those walls and making it suit us, and it slid back to basically a bit of an upgrade, and we didn't like it, and we just couldn't work out how to amalgamate the two physical sports as well.
Can I just add to that, please, Mr. Chair, supplementary? So are you aware of any other places in the world where there is Speedway and stock cars?
Stock cars are just about finished in the world, I think. There might be a few racing in England, but I don't think they do get on very well with outside of that.
Christchurch.
Yeah, Christchurch has two separate tracks. Well, we have two, and all the other tracks around New Zealand just do a bit of a speedway thing once or twice a year.
First question, when did you decide?
Well, it was things like we took Stuart. What was his name? The legendary NASCAR driver. Tony Stewart came to New Zealand. We took him down to Palmerston North, and he legitimately tried to pass a car on the outside going around the bottom bend, and he got caught up in the fence and just wrote his car completely off. And that's the sort of problem we've got. And they boast that they build their fence strong enough to stand one of those stock cars that weigh about 3 tonne, driving in at full power and not breaking the fence, and they can change it even if it does. But it certainly didn't dent the fence when he went into it, and it completely wrote his car off. It was just scrap, and he walked home and didn't bother competing again. And so to try and get that calibre of driver down to run on a stock car track would be an impossibility.
Just again, my question was, when did you decide that Waikareka was not suitable?
Late last year, I think. I wrote to the what's the name, to Sudan, and said that things weren't going well. We weren't getting the deal that they promised us, and it was just not going to fly with me, and so that was we pulled out of the negotiations then.
Thank you for that. That does raise concerns for me, Mr. Chair, because the letter I received from Auckland Stadiums was 2nd of February. So the decision made by Speedway to move was made before, and RFA continued negotiations with the local board regarding moving to Waikareka.
Yep. Okay, and RFA will answer that at the appropriate time when they next come to report to us. So we have Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I was actually one of the Manukau City Councillors at the time when the Collindale decision was made. One of the things that we were very concerned about was actually the traffic management, and I'm just having a look here on the 10th of December 2016. Air New Zealand passengers missed flights after Auckland Airport with traffic chaos. That to me is probably even more important than even the lights, the traffic lights. So you're saying you've got between 16 and maybe 24 races that are going to probably occur. The Auckland International Airport and Domestic Airport is the only airport we've got in Auckland. It is, a lot of people are very, very concerned, and people are voicing to me. I live out in Pakuranga, and I was a very good friend of Bill Mudgeway, and he certainly loved Speedway at Western Springs, and a lot of people that really want to keep it at the Western Springs. If there was any way that we could keep it at Western Springs, and if all the other boxes can't be ticked, maybe because of traffic management, maybe the lighting and other issues, would you like for us to try to see what we can do to try and make sure you can stay at Western Springs? As if we can't
Yeah.
tick all the boxes.
Yeah, I still think Western Springs is the option to alongside Collindale Park is but I think the first thing you got to do with Western Springs is give us at least 16 meetings. You've got to take the Environment Court out of our decisions on what we're allowed to do and what we aren't allowed to do there. It is just, they have bent over backwards to make it impossible to run at the Springs, and we have done everything in our power to make it successful. And because the sport is such a good sport, people do come along and do participate in it, but it has had no help from council or anybody ever since I've been here. It's been a tough road to hoe to be at Western Springs. I've had no help from, I've had about 20 or 30 different heads telling me what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not, and who I've got to report to. It has just been a complete fiasco, the deal at Western Springs, and I believe that they're going to put a roundabout at Price's Road, which will make it much easier to get in and out of. Was only about 5 years ago that you opened that road. You had you wouldn't open that road for years until some privateer started an airline out of Hamilton, and then all of a sudden you decided that road was useful. Now you're telling me it's too full. You know, you seem to talk with a double tongue half the time. It's easy enough to put a roundabout there and make easier for traffic to get in and out of, and it's only a couple of times a week at the most that we're going to do it, and most of it that when they're leaving, I think the airport sort of has a bit of a voluntary curfew on it, so that the traffic's died down by the time we leave the meeting. It's just in the early hours when we're getting there, and that's not such a rush. The big trucks get there quite early in the afternoon, maybe 2 o'clock, and the punters don't get there till 6 or 7 o'clock. So it's a bit spread out. Getting there, it's getting home, getting out of the place that's going to clog the roads up a bit, and that's when certainly the domestic airlines almost closed down by 10 o'clock, and I don't see that the extra congestion we're going to put on Puanui Road is going to be that troublesome with a proper roundabout there.
So how many spectators are you envisaging that will probably attend each of these races? And it looks like if it goes out to Collindale, you're envisaging that it's going to be much bigger and there'll be a lot more people that'll be able to attend.
Well, for the South Auckland regions are growing quite fast, and so I think it's an easier place to get to from the south in the Waikato district. So we'll lose a few of those punters that I say that just go to Ponsonby and wander down there till the nightlife starts, but we'll pick up a few more people from the south of Auckland. It cuts quite a bit of time out for the Speedway enthusiasts from Huntly and Kiki and down the line, so that they'll more than likely come up more. The Kiki, when I first started there, they were running a bus up to Western Springs, but in the last few years it's got too difficult. They had to start an hour earlier because of the traffic jams, and so that dropped off. So that might sort of build up again, but we're still hoping for at least as big a crowds as we're getting now. We're around 7,000 or 8,000.
I think around the table, I think that we're all very, very supportive of Speedway, and I personally, I'd like to see it stay at Western Springs, but I think, you know, we all have to, you know, the Auckland International and Domestic Airport is really the lifeline to a lot of people, and
Well,
you know,
that's very good to hear that you say that the council is really supportive of it, but I have been heavily involved with Speedway for a long time, and I've had a lot of trouble with council agreeing with it. From Haka was really set us up, and then Banksy did the same thing, and you know, I got really slandered by some of those guys, and I got no help from when I asked for help from council, and I've just been shunned. And now we've got some support from council, and you're all saying you're 100% behind us. That's great news.
I think
It's the first time anybody has told me from council
I
that
think
you're
100%
100%.
We're
behind you,
100%
but
behind you last
we
time.
want to make sure that
Huh?
it's at the right place, and we don't want to end up causing a problem that we have people wanting to catch international flights and domestic flights, and you know, that we can have
Yep.
gridlock because of, you know, that's the big concern. And I think we all are 100% behind you, but whether we have to start looking at, maybe we have to go back to the Western Springs, and maybe we need to all, you know, I'm just thinking
I'm
outside.
allowing this comment to meander, but it's supposed to be a question, but yeah, yep.
Well, if I could say, you cited the 10 December 2016 traffic problems at Auckland Airport. We know that the pre-Christmas period is busy there. We've been challenged with roadworks that have been going on for some time out to the airport, and I see a lot of those have been finished. So, you know, and any of these issues, we just have to work with them and anticipate what problems there might be and see how we manage them. I don't think it's helpful to just be saying, well, it's going to be a problem and full stop, you know, stay at Western Springs, because we've looked at all the options, and Collindale Park's what we think is the best option.
So Councillor Stewart, there's a team of 3 working on this with Greg, and I think Greg is quite surprised at the energy that's going into it. There's basically full-time work being done investigating all the issues, because if there are big issues that come about, like this an issue with the airport, then, you know, maybe it's impossible, who knows, but that's what we're trying to work through in this period of 3 months, isn't it, Greg?
Mhm.
So
82
Councillor
days.
Darby. No? Councillor Casey?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments and a couple of questions. My first comment relates to the MOU, and just to be assured, Bill, when we were briefed on the night before the press conference, councillors were briefed by the chair of the Finance Committee and the mayor. The MOU was not disclosed to us because you hadn't signed it, so we didn't see the words. Today's the first time we've seen the words. And it's those words I'd like to ask a question about. Contained within the words of the MOU, there is a possible contribution to your relocation from the council or possibly CCOs. Have you had discussions about the quantum of that contribution?
It's in the MOU.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked. Well, I think we wrote an MOU to start with, and then council got it, and they counter-wrote what they wanted, and RFA had a dig at it, and that's what we've come up with. It's a starting point that we.
Can you share that with us, Bill? Because there is no figure in that MOU.
There is.
In the
Sorry, I'm reading it on my phone. Can somebody share that with me then?
Well, it's confidential.
Can somebody speak to me through the chair?
Not confidential.
It's
Yeah,
confidential.
no, well, it's
It's in Schedule B, which is confidential.
Yeah.
Oh, Bill, you'll whisper in her ear.
Is it? No. Let me be clear.
No.
I've read the MOU. Is there more that's been
Keep
withheld?
scrolling.
With-
Keep
with
scrolling.
some-
Very
Schedule
last
B.
page, very
Schedule
last
B.
page
Just
then.
somebody tell me what it is. I'm on my phone. This is the first time I've seen it. Thank you.
How much is it?
Through the chair.
I haven't got it in front of me, but basically what any undertaking, I think the mayor has actually made it at the press conference, or in the subsequent, he said what would be the approximate cost to council
Yeah.
if this went ahead,
How
and
much?
we've given an indicative figure of 12 to 13 million. So that is what was
How much?
said,
Sorry.
12 to 13 million. So Remember, Waikaraka Park RFA were budgeting 10 million to go there with the potential to go to 12.5. So basically the parameters that
Is it
offer that.
confidential or not?
You've just disclosed confidential information.
I think the mayor has already disclosed this figure,
No,
but
he
the
said
mayor.
it's-
It was discussed at the press conference. It was open to the public. It was reported in the media. The bottom line was $10 million, and it could go up to 12, 12.5, 13. And as the chair of the Finance Committee has properly pointed out, that was roughly the same amount of money as we were talking about with Waikaraka. So this isn't new, this isn't surprising, and it's certainly well short of Bill's figure of 40 million, which is what Bill is telling us they would need to be able to continue to compete safely at Western Springs, but with the additional advantage, of course, that this can go up to 16 meets or 24 meets, depending on what Speedway's requirements are. So I think we've heard quite clearly from our three representatives from Speedway what their view is, what their opinion over time has been, why it's shifted, and I think the reasoning that we've heard from Bill and his team has been sound.
Greg, I have a question of you, and it's not, I don't want to ask this of Bill because you're involved. You approached me as Chair of Finance after you came and presented to the key stakeholders, and I think 7 or 8 councillors were here at that meeting. We were still there at the end of the day. You then approached me, you know, whatever, a few weeks later, and we had a long discussion, and then another meeting occurred where involved the Deputy Mayor as well, and then Janice came along to that meeting. Can you confirm whether, because there's a council member that has said that Deputy Mayor and myself bribed you and offered you some inducements. Can you confirm whether we bribed you at all?
No, there's no bribes offered, unfortunately.
Councillor Newman.
Okay, that's on record. We don't have bribes in New Zealand.
No.
Sweetness.
No such thing.
Sweetness.
Thank you. I think my question's
Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Greg. I think my question is best addressed to you. I'm not going to devolve the rest of the MOU because it's confidential. But with respect to the access, the road access and Prices Road, because that's a concern for me. Southern Consortium, which is developing the commercial land to the east of Prices Road, will address the roundabout and access to its land, which it hopefully gets that intersection sorted out. But the balance of Prices Road still needs to be upgraded from the goat track to a collector road, which is going to cost a lot of money. Has there been any discussion with you beyond the MOU about the need for the upgrade to the ancillary utility infrastructure, starting with the Prices Road for transport, and maybe dealing with the water and potable water and wastewater connections as well?
Yes, there has. So I drove down Prices Road again on Sunday, and by all accounts that road's well equipped to cope with the types of vehicles that we would have go down it. So I don't see Prices Road as being an issue. We've talked about the one-way system that's been tabled, I assume some time ago, about looping back round past the equestrian area, back down to McLaughlin's Road, and my understanding is that that's not going to go ahead in the near future. So part of our design, and we're in discussions and final stages actually of discussions around our design within the park, is to have a one-way system within the park itself in order to make sure that that in itself works. So there's only one flow of traffic going in and going out at any one time.
I'm not so much concerned about the vehicles, the Speedway vehicles. It's it's the visitors. It's the crowd. You know, the 15,000. Great. I want this to happen at Collindale. As a former Manukau City Councillor, I want Collindale to be the best that it can. I just think that Prices Road needs to be fully upgraded, and my concern is to ensure that we have properly taken that road to the standard that it needs to be. And I don't believe it's a cost that should fall to you, but I wonder if it's a cost that has been discussed with you.
No,
and if it hasn't, I'll reflect it back to the officers.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
In terms of the water, we know where that pipe is, and we're very aware as to what what we're able to do and the like. So,
That's your stormwater, though.
That's stormwater, yeah. It's at the back of the property.
Chair, is it a question that I need to address to Matthew then? because the question that I have, we've got 2 years to sort this out.
And a half.
Sorry?
2.5.
2.5. I met with Auckland Transport and NZTA last week. Addresses the roundabout, the intersection, but it's the upgrade to the road, which is, Auckland Transport advised me it's not factored. They weren't actually that aware of it when I discussed it with them, and it probably needs to have some urgency around it. I mean, I don't know who pays for that, but there's no development down there that pays for it. So can we get some information as to how that's going to be addressed?
The enterprise.
Yeah, I just get Matthew to actually just explain the difference between a memorandum of understanding and a contract, because I think that answers your question really.
So through the chair, and I suspect everyone actually does know the difference between an MOU and a contract, but so the things you're discussing about, and Councillor Newman, I think those are good points. Through an MOU, it's effectively an agreement that the parties have identified an opportunity that everyone is interested to have a really good look at to see if it can be completely costed and all of the costs and benefits lined up prior to entering into a hard agreement. I think the points around nearby infrastructure adjustments and so on are absolutely in scope, would absolutely need to be costed and made clear, and all of that work needs to be done before this table makes a decision, because you have not yet made a decision. What's been entered into is a memorandum of understanding to have a look at the opportunity.
Matthew, can I ask you to sponsor the report back of that information, because I think that what I don't want to see is Prices Road shortchanged because nobody thought to pick up the cost. Because Auckland Transport, I don't think, is fully over this because they haven't been party to the discussions here, but it needs to be addressed, and it's one of a number of utility issues that needs to be addressed and reported back, the cost of it and the timing of it.
So through the chair, I'm happy for staff to take that up.
All right.
And Councillor Newman, just be quite aware that the Deputy Mayor and myself were aware of that as an issue, and that was discussed as just one of the imponderables that we need to delve into to see what's feasible, what's cost, etc., etc. Right, Councillor Watson.
I think, and it's just a couple of very quick questions on the memorandum of understanding, which I've just seen like everyone else. And we can't divulge these, I take it, but my addition here as to the accumulating cost here, we have a grant that the Mayor has referred to, partial funding of 10 million plus GST. Then we have some other significance additions that run to, and the word additional is used, running to a couple more million, which take it in my calculations up to 14 million. Then we have other things like employments of very well paid project manager, that's additional to that at the bequest of Speedway Promotions. So the cash register is starting to tick on this one. I'm just wondering, Matthew, if we can have a final cost of all these things that add up here, and certainly the one that I'm interested in then is the project manager who comes in under the wings or the auspices of SPL at a very handsome salary, and who will be appointing that person and what oversight will be made of that.
I'll get this, Bill. I'll get this.
And there are others, but...
It's a 2.5 year salary to start with. It's not annual.
I'm looking at we deal with the all up costs, Bill.
Any further questions? Oh, sorry.
So you look at, and it's really in a reply to Councillor Newman around that intersection. And yeah, look, I obviously had a talk last Wednesday with NZTA and Auckland Transport. So in the next 2.5 years, and I mean, I look forward to what happens around that particular intersection, because that's one of the most important things I think that we need to do, and because it's in myself and Councillor Collins' ward, that's why I've taken also the opportunity to talk to NZTA and with Auckland Transport around it. So those are, and then in the next year, at least until the next triennial, I'll be keen and will be contacting Auckland Transport and NZTA around what works gets done.
20p upgrade.
We'll come back.
Oh, it is. That's why I spoke to them last Wednesday.
Yeah. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this is public input from Speedway to us. I think what the recent communication out to all councillors has brought up is the need for us to have a separate, a item on either this agenda or the somebody else's agenda that actually just talks about the financial, the project itself, what's planned, the whole 9 yards. This is a bit unfair for us to sort of start delving. This is these people's public opportunity to talk to us and ask them questions. But I think what it's done is uncovered a bigger issue that we need to address in a different way. So can you give the meeting confidence that that's going to happen?
It hasn't uncovered anything, because that will be happening. But that's why work has been done now to actually just work through all of these issues, and then it's going to come back. And we haven't determined which committee, but it'll probably be this committee. And how much RFA is involved or not is another issue as well. So basically, I asked Speedway and Bill and team to come here today to really just let everyone ask their questions and further things on. And I'd like to give you the impression that Speedway is quite open to this move that they proposed to us. Councillor Hills, no, this will be the last question.
Just a quick comment, just because there was words around the money, but it was all mentioned, and it's all through all the stories that happened a few weeks ago. So I just worry that we've given the assumption out there that there's secret figures. Those figures were quoted in every story and every Auckland Council, thing that came out that day. So I'm just making sure that the people here have given their view that this is their best option, but we've also had those figures, and it's up to us to ask more questions along the way as well. We can't just be... I'm just worried the assumptions that have been put across today, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. And I think one thing that hasn't been asked and should be noticed is Council is not going to be the only funder of this stadium. Let's be quite clear about this. Councillor Cashmore.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Bill and team, I'd just like to acknowledge you, the work that you've done to build Speedway up over many, many decades as a services to Auckland, and your willingness now to embrace a new era that gives you opportunity, gives you a greater degree of permanence and resilience, and also gives you a greater degree of certainty going forward. We will be working through all these issues, NZTA around 20B, the Price Road roundabout, public transport down there, dedicated busways. It's all part of the big picture that will be negotiated through over the next 2 or 3 months. But Sir, I'd just like, I think on behalf of this council, to thank you for all your work with Speedway and also in your businesses, which are a very important part of this city's economy. So, Bill, from me to you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, well, I resume on that, Councillor Cashmore, you're willing to move the vote of thanks, and I'm happy to second. But before I do that, is there anything else Janice or Greg or Bill would you like to say?
No, I'd just like to thank Council and Bill more than anybody, the work he's put into it, and to gather this group together. It's been a big change of heart for me. Looking into the City Council's way of working. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and we receive and thank Bill and Greg and Janice for coming along. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Right. Right, next